For years, motorcycles have been a vast part of American culture, going all the way back to the early 1900s, maintaining their popularity through the wars, and finding their place in the hippie movement, as shown in movies like Easy Rider. Motorcycles have sparked their own culture. The culture is so extensive and rich, I can easily fill an entire video about it. From the invention of the motorcycle, to motorcycle races, to the rise of biker gangs like the Hells Angels, to the culture that still exists today. And we can't forget about the 77 years of Sturgis Motorcycle Rally in South Dakota. To many motorcycle owners, it's not just a means of transportation, it's a way of life. They've certainly made their impact on America, and the rest of the world as well. And what's the biggest name in the motorcycle industry? Well, Harley Davidson, of course. People don't just want to ride a motorcycle, they want to ride a Harley. But despite their massive success in the industry, there's one big problem that the company faces. But first, I want to talk a little bit more about the company. The name Harley Davidson comes from William S. Harley and Arthur Davidson. In 1903, they made the first Harley Davidson motorcycle available to the public. In 1910, the Harley Davidson logo was debuted. By 1918, almost half of all Harleys produced were sold to the US military and used in World War I. In the early 1930s, the Great Depression knocked out all US motorcycle producers, with the exception of Indian and Harley Davidson. These were the only two producers until 1953. However, when World War II came around, they stopped almost all production of commercial bikes and focused their attention on the war effort. In 1945, the war ended and they refocused their attention on civilian bikes. They've continued this production through today. Now, people haven't been purchasing Harleys like they have in the past. I can think of a few possible reasons for this. One is that motorcycles in general are thought of as being somewhat of a luxury item. It's true that they're generally cheaper than a car, but most people buying a motorcycle aren't buying it in place of a car, it's in addition to an existing car. Motorcycles just aren't practical as a primary mode of transportation. They're not something most of us can take to work every day, especially in colder, snow-filled regions. And as we know, luxury items are one of the first things to be cut from the budget during a downturn in the economy. In a recent annual report, they state, the motorcycle industry is impacted by general economic conditions over which motorcycle manufacturers have little control. These factors can weaken the retail environment and lead to weaker demand for discretionary purchases, such as motorcycles. Also, Harleys are known for being large and powerful. Today, we're more concerned about fuel efficiency and environmental impact more than ever before. The company has recognized these issues and in the last decade have introduced smaller, more efficient bikes. But having trouble selling bikes isn't exactly their biggest problem. Their biggest problem, simply put, is that their customers are getting too old. A while ago, you would picture this as your typical Harley rider. Today, you would picture something more like this. The younger generation just isn't into motorcycles like they used to be. They're more technologically inclined than mechanically inclined. And to make matters worse for Harley Davidson, the few young people that are into motorcycles typically value speed over power. They're gravitated toward the smaller, faster brands such as Yamaha or Honda. Honda's motorcycle segment is very competitive with Harley, and it's not even the area in which they specialize. The concept of pulling in younger generations to a product is nothing new. In fact, it's been done with every product that has lasted multiple generations, and in most cases, it's not all that hard. Take Disney. Their product is targeted toward young children, and as you may or may not know, young children don't stay young forever. This means that Disney has to constantly capture a new audience. But it's not something that threatens the company. The young kids of yesterday are the parents of today. The parents promote the stuff to their own kids because they remember it as being great when they were young. As long as they continue to put out a quality product, it's not going to be an issue for Disney. But for Harley Davidson, it's a little harder to capture the next generation. The brand has just as much credibility as the Disney brand, but unlike Disney, it's hard to introduce it to someone when they're young.
You know, when I was a young man, riding a Harley Davidson motorcycle, that's all I could think of. I mean, that open road, that rumbling engine, the wind in my face.
What, a Harley?
No, I never got it. I spent the money on aluminum siding instead.
Motorcycles probably aren't going to enter a person's life until they're much older and less influenced by their parents. Also, the nature of Harley's product makes it a bigger task to interest new people. Disney just requires the price of a movie ticket or some merchandise. Oreo requires a few dollars for a box of cookies, but Harley Davidson requires thousands of dollars and basically the adaptation of a new lifestyle. They demand a much higher commitment from their customers, and for a company that relies so heavily on their brand name, this could mean bad news. The company has always had issues with attracting customers that aren't white males, but in recent times, they've been having trouble even capturing that young white male demographic. The group that used to be the cornerstone of the company, possibly the best thing they have going for them in this area is the tremendous brand loyalty that their existing customers carry. Remember these two? Well, they're the same guy. Not literally, of course, but that young male customer of the past is the same old male customer of the present. This graph comes straight from the Harley Davidson website. They seem to be doing fine in that white male above 35 category, but everything else could use some work. And they have been working at it. If you visit the investor relations section of their website, they talk about their efforts to attract young adults, women, African Americans, and Hispanic riders. They give their plans to focus marketing toward these areas and give charts about how they're doing well in the categories in terms of market share. But I have trouble buying a lot of it. Even if you're able to increase market share, it doesn't say much for the total number of customers in that demographic. 42% of a pie sounds better than 31% of a pie, but once you learn that the 42% pie is smaller, it doesn't sound quite as good anymore. They may be able to regain their former status in the industry, which, by the way, it's not like they're struggling in the industry, it's just not at the level they once were. They're going to have to do it with their product. They can't rely on the brand name like they have with younger generations. They may have to tailor their product to what the younger population wants, but still offer the classics that their older customers keep coming back for, which is exactly what they've been attempting. But my guess is that they'll never return to what they once were. They could possibly steal customers from competitors, but the competitors only have so many customers to steal. What Harley really needs is to make motorcycles popular once again, and that's probably a task that's too great for them. Some of you may be thinking, so what's the problem? Continue selling to the older generation and forget about the younger one. Well, this would be fine, but their core demographic has gotten steadily older. It's not like their customers are turning 50 and deciding to buy their first motorcycle. That 50-year-old is the 35-year-old that bought one 15 years ago, and the 20-year-old that bought one 15 years before that. Which is where the problem lies. When that guy is 65, he may feel he's getting too old to buy a new one. When he's 80, those chances increase. And when he's 95, well, you know what could happen then. The existing customers won't be around forever, and for the company to maintain itself, it has to draw in new ones. The future doesn't look great for Harley Davidson. I'm not saying to run out and sell your stock in the company. Stock symbol HOG, by the way. Just know that there's a question as to their ability to continue selling bikes in the long term. Keep an eye on them, and the industry, over the next few years. It's going to be interesting to see how this all turns out. Let me know in the comments any thoughts you have on Harley Davidson, the motorcycle industry, or anything else I talked about. I'd like to hear what you have to say. Thank you for watching.